Hello, my dear children. Namaste and welcome to session 2 of our class 10 ICSE biology chapter. Yes, the nervous system, which is again one of the most important and the trickiest, according to many students, chapter of the unit human physiology. This is Ambika, your biology master teacher, right here at Vedantu. Okay, guys, so in the last session, as you know, we have gotten kick-started with this chapter, like one of the major, like basic things that you must know about your nervous system, which is about neurons, the structure and the structural and functional unit of our nervous system, which is the neuron. Right. So now it's time to go a bit deeper and talk a little more about the more important, or rather, at the same time, the more familiar parts of our nervous system. But before we move into that, let me tell you this. If you don't sacrifice for what you want becomes the sacrifice. So decide right now. Is it the tiny little temporary pleasures that matter to you? Or is it your long term dreams, your long term goals that matter to you more? It's your decision. And right now, make up your mind what to sacrifice. Okay, and children, we've been celebrating for the last few days at Vedantu, all of these results, the 10th standard ICSE, the 10th standard CBSE, the 12th CBSE, and all of these. And of course, the latest to the list is our IIT JEE results. And we are all very, very happy to share with you that Vedantu students have bagged top ranks in IIT JEE. And to make it even better, the most exciting piece of information for us is that it's the best results among all online classes. Yes, these are some of our super scorers from JEE Advanced 2020. Children, so as I always say, do get inspired by these children. It's not like you must definitely go in for NEET or you must definitely go in for JEE. No, that's not what I'm saying. Of course, as I always say, I would always stick to that. The fact that you must follow your heart. What exactly your passion is, you must follow that. And that is what will certainly make you a successful person also. Okay. But what I'm telling you about is, when I say take inspiration from these children, what I'm saying is it's very, very clear, especially in this year's super scorers results, that these children haven't allowed anything to come in their way of success. Because considering the fact that 2020 has been a very difficult year for everyone around the world, these children have managed to do so well in one of the most competitive exams in the entire country. So if they can do it, you can also do it. Definitely. Just make up your mind right now and tell yourself, I can and I will. Watch me. Yes? All right. And with that, let's move on to discuss the homework. No major discussion to do as such. The chemical which helps the neuron to communicate is called dash with the adjacent neuron. What is the chemical? We call it the neurotransmitters. And the most common neurotransmitters in our body, it is acetylcholine. Okay. So in general, we give the name neurotransmitters to these chemicals which help in communication between one neuron with its immediate adjacent neuron. Remember, I've explained all this. They are stored in synaptic vesicles, and when they come in contact with the presynaptic membrane, they get released into the space which is called the synaptic cleft, and they are taken up by the receptors on the postsynaptic membrane, and that triggers an impulse in the postsynaptic neuron, which is this neuron. Okay, this is how they communicate with each other, the neurons. All right, so neurotransmitters is our answer. And today, let us learn about the central nervous system, which is chiefly comprised of the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, so we know the nervous system, it's one major part of our body. For the sake of making it easier to understand, we categorize our entire nervous system into two. The central nervous system, which we call the body's master control unit, and the peripheral nervous system, which is rather the body's link to the outside world. So what is the basic difference between the two? Well, the central nervous system is basically the decision makers in your body, the ultimate control centers or the decision makers in your body, which help in controlling every single thing that happens in your body, right? What does it include? It chiefly includes the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, brain and the spinal cord are part of the central nervous system. Of course, the brain stem also, which is a sort of link between the brain and the spinal cord, which also we will be discussing today. All of these three make a part of central nervous system. All right, so it doesn't help if the central nervous system was just restricted to one single part of your body. There has to be something to help your central nervous system interact with the outside world. Otherwise, how do you think magically all that information can be passed on to your brain and your spinal cord? There has to be something to help them in that. That is what the peripheral nervous system does. So, peripheral nervous system, let me make it simple for you. Right now, do not look at all the further classification right here, autonomic and somatic and sympathetic, parasympathetic. No, we'll be discussing that in our upcoming sessions, so that can wait, okay? So for the time being, just understand peripheral nervous system is the part of the nervous system which is made up of all the nerves in your body, nerves which are arising from the brain and from the spinal cord. Okay, so that is the peripheral nervous system, which is the body's link to the outside world, helps in transmitting information from the outside world into your brain and spinal cord, and also helps the brain and spinal cord transmit their decisions back to the outside world. Okay, so how exactly this functions, we will get to know in this chapter. Okay, so let us, as I told you, focus today on the central nervous system, chiefly comprised of the brain and the spinal cord. So children, although this is a front view that you see here, spinal cord, actually speaking, is a part which is enclosed inside your vertebral column, which we call the backbone. You know what I have seen when I interact with many people, many children and many adults also, I have seen that many people, they use the word spinal cord and backbone interchangeably, but that is such a wrong thing. Spinal cord is part of your nervous system which is enclosed inside your vertebral column. It is the vertebral column which you call the backbone. When you touch behind you, like when you touch your back, what you feel, those tiny projections are individual tiny bones which together are linked to each other to form your backbone or the vertebral column. But spinal cord is not something that you can feel when you touch, because the spinal cord is protected inside that bony tubular vertebral column. All right. And what about the brain? The brain is an organ which is situated in your head region. You know that. Where exactly? Inside your skull. There is a bony box which is part of the skull, and we call that box the cranium. It is inside the cranium that the brain is situated, and it is inside the vertebral column that the spinal cord is situated. All right, so let us now understand more about the brain, starting with the brain. Okay, what does our brain do? Well, rather, the better question would be, what does the brain not do? Right? There are fewer things that the brain doesn't do than the number of things that it would do, right? Because attention, planning, decision making, movement, speech, smell, touch, taste, hearing, memory processing, emotions, your controlling your heart rate and breathing, movement coordination, everything, vision, every single thing. Your brain helps control all of these and even a lot more in your body. Okay, so different parts of the brain are able to control different functions which are mentioned here. The chief functions that our brain does have been mentioned here in this image beautifully, right? So let us try and understand more about this. And before I go on to the anatomical segments of the brain, let me tell you a couple of interesting facts. One, of course, is the fact that in proportion to the body, the human brain is said to be the largest among all animals. Compared to other animals, the human brain is said to be the largest. And even if you consider the stages of human evolution, we would say that Homo sapiens have the largest brain capacity, okay, as compared to what was in our ancestors, like Homo erectus, Homo, all of those Neanderthalensis. Of course, Neanderthal man is also said to have had a huge brain capacity, but then let us also relate to the fact and appreciate the fact that Neanderthal man was the immediate ancestor of Homo sapiens. So compare these two with all other ancestors of Homo sapiens, and you would be able to see how progressively the cranial capacity and the brain capacity, the size of the brain, have been increasing. Okay, and this is what, in fact, what is it that makes us unique and different from other animals? Because human beings are also part of the animal kingdom. But what makes us unique is the fact that we master. There are two things. As the movie Jungle Book says, the red flower. The movie Jungle Book says the fire, right? Discovery of fire made us very powerful. Also, the ability to master the skill of language has also been very beneficial to Homo sapiens, right? So, but of course, we could also argue that other animals have their own methods of communication. But whatever it may be, let's definitely appreciate the fact that human beings today have, developed so many different languages, right? Even in India, we can be proud that our country is filled with so many diverse languages. Yet we are all made up of the same kinds of cells. The same organ, which is the brain, helps us master our respective languages, right? All right. And here is another fact. The adult brain, the adult human brain, is said to be around 1.35 kilograms in weight and about 2% of body weight, roughly. Okay. And it is made up of 80% water and 25% of oxygen. These are a few interesting facts about the brain. So let us now move on to understand more about the structural aspects, what is more relevant in biology. So the brain, of course, I told you it's protected inside the bony box, which we call the cranium, right? These are the coverings of the brain that you see here. The brain inside the cranium and right outside the brain, there is this bony box, and inside that the brain is there. In between the brain and the bony box that protects it, there is a three-layered membrane, which is called meninges. Okay, the meninges is made up of the outer dura mater, the middle arachnoid, and the inner pia mater. Okay, and in between the pia mater and arachnoid, there is a space within which there is a fluid called the cerebrospinal fluid. Also, I will tell you about that, but for the time being, just understand these are the three different layers which make up the meninges of the brain. So, why exactly is the meninges important? There are different functions for it, of course, but chiefly the meninges is a layer which helps in protecting your brain from different kinds of shocks and mechanical shocks. And secondly, it is able to connect your cranium, which is the bony box, and the brain, acts as a sort of link between this bony box and the organ inside it, which is the brain. And of course, when I say this connection is established, it also means that it is because of the help of meninges that blood supply is able to be maintained to the brain. Okay. So dura mater, arachnoid, and pia mater, the three layers of the meninges. Dura mater, as you can see, is connected to the cranium. Pia mater is more so connected to the organ itself, to the brain itself, and arachnoid is in between these two. All right, so let us now understand one more term, which is in fact an inflammation of meninges. What happens when there is an inflammation of the meninges? This is a disorder which we call meningitis. Always remember the suffix itis in biology is inflammation. Sinusitis is inflammation of your sinuses. Rhinitis is inflammation inside your nasal cavities, and so on. There are many different itis terms that you will be able to relate to. Meningitis is when there is an inflammation in the meninges, and this can be a very, very serious disease. Okay, so what you see here is the normal meninges, and this is the case of meningitis where there is an inflammation that you can see. All right, and here comes the cerebrospinal fluid, which I was telling you about. It is also along with the meninges, it acts like a cushion which protects the brain from mechanical shocks. As I told you, where exactly would you find it? This blue area, right? What you see with the arrows marked here. These are the areas where cerebrospinal fluid is seen to be moving around. So do remember, there is a layer of protection, like the meninges protects the brain. There is a similar set of 3 layers protecting the spinal cord also. So the cerebrospinal fluid has the ability to protect the brain and the spinal cord from mechanical shocks, and also it acts as a sort of medium for the transport of respiratory gases and nutrients and a lot of other stuff. Okay, so this is the importance of cerebrospinal fluid, which is found between pia mater and arachnoid, the innermost and the middle layers of the meninges. Okay. Now coming into the brain itself, we have come from outside to inside, starting with the cranium and then the meninges, then the cerebrospinal fluid. Now let us talk about the brain itself. Yes, this is what our brain looks like. Of course, it doesn't look like blue and pink or anything like that. It's just there to give it fancy colors and make it more colorful. Our brain is made up of 2 hemispheres. Okay, chiefly the colored parts which you see here, we call them cerebral hemispheres. We call it the right and the left cerebral hemisphere. So with the position of the skull that's rotating here, tell me which is right and left, the pink or the blue? Of course, as far as this particular skull is concerned, pink is the right cerebral hemisphere, blue is the left cerebral hemisphere, right? And as you can see, in the middle of them, they are divided by a gap which we call cerebral fissure. Okay, but then also do remember that these 2 hemispheres are not completely independent of each other. Okay, there is a connection between them. I will tell you about that also. Now, what you see below the cerebrum are further structures of the brain, which we will be discussing further, like cerebellum, medulla, and all of those. For now, let us focus on the cerebral hemispheres. So let me tell you an interesting fact about the cerebral hemispheres. It is, I told you, your right brain and the left brain. Chiefly, it is mainly the cerebral hemispheres which form a part of your brain. In fact, more than 85% of your entire brain is occupied by the cerebrum. Okay, we call it the seat of intelligence. Why so? Because of all of this. Because the left part of your brain is concerned with all of these functions: logic, focusing on facts, realism predominates, planning and being orderly in nature, math and science minded, and a left brain prefers non-fiction. Whereas the right brain is more emotional, it's focused more on art and creativity. Imagination predominates over realism, being realistic, occasionally absent-minded as compared to the left brain. Right brain prefers fiction and enjoys creative storytelling, painting, music, all of that, all kinds of art and everything is more so controlled by the right brain. Now tell me, how many of you are right-handed and left-handed? I would really love to know that. I'm a right-hander, by the way. And I think a good majority of our population is right-handed also, especially in India. But sadly, the fact is that what I have observed at least is that in India, like more than giving an importance to what naturally your brain is oriented to, being a right-hander or a left-hander, it is generally, there is a notion that doing like eating with your left hand, writing with your left hand, writing is still all right, but eating with your left hand and all of that, it is considered to be like bad manners or, not so great. But there is nothing like that, because it is something that your brain controls. Different people, of course, it is something that you get genetically also. So even if there are left-handed children in the family, I know of many people who were from childhood forced to use their right hand. and forced to, not use their left hand, although this is what they naturally have more of a strength and grasp with. That's a very, very sad thing, and it's a very wrong thing to do also. Whatever naturally comes, that is what we need to encourage. So, in fact, like me, all the right-handers out there, your left brain is actually more active than your right brain. Okay. And for the left-handers out there, your right brain is said to be more active than the left brain. Now, this can open up a lot of debates. I think whenever I do live sessions on this, live classes on this topic, people are like, no, I'm a right-hander, but I'm still good in math. I'm still good in science. People take it like sort of an insult. There is nothing like that. Okay. It's just that scientifically, this is how it's been proven. Okay. But then at the same time, do remember, as I told you, although they are hemispheres of the brain, they are more or less working in collaboration with each other. Now, I'm a person who is very interested in science, but I'm also very interested in maths. Okay, because in my school days, bio and maths were my favorite subjects. And after my 12th standard, I had a huge confusion which one to choose between the two, bio or maths. I picked up bio only for the reason that if I had to take maths as a main subject in my bachelor's, I had to study physics also. I wasn't very fond of physics. So that is a different thing. When I say I'm interested in math and science, it doesn't mean that I'm not at all a creative person. Of course, most of my students also know that I'm very, very inclined to music. I'm very, very inclined to many different kinds of art, also especially music. But that is controlled by the right side of my brain. That is why I'm saying that there is a collaboration between these two. And even Gopal sir, all of you know Gopal sir, who teaches math on this channel, right? Gopal sir is a left-hander, sir is a lefty. But does that mean that, it's contradictory if I tell you that sir's right brain is more dominant? Sir is a math teacher. So that is why I'm saying, children, although this is a fact, both the hemispheres of the brain work in sync with each other. How exactly do they communicate with each other? Let me tell you about that. Yes, a set of nerve fibers. There is a huge bundle of nerve fibers which act as a link between the left and right hemispheres. We call that corpus callosum. And this is a very, very, very important part of the brain. It is said that 1 in 4,000 people are born either without a corpus callosum or with some kind of a disorder in the corpus callosum, right? So this is supposed to be a very, very important part of the brain, corpus callosum. Do remember that. Okay. So what exactly is it? From an exam perspective, if you want to know about it, it's a sheet of fibers which helps to connect and transfer information from one hemisphere to another. Yes, it acts as a link between the right and left hemispheres of your brain. Okay, now let us understand about the section of the brain. If you took one thin section of the brain this way and observed it, you would see that the outer layers are gray in color and the inner layers are more whitish. We call that literally the gray matter and white matter. Okay, it can either be Gray. Some people also spell it as Grey. Okay, I have seen both being interchangeably used, so that's not too much of a problem. The outer portion, which we call the cortex, is the portion of your brain which consists of the cell bodies of neurons. Remember the neurons, right? Yes, this is how neurons would be arranged. Not exactly like this, because neurons would be a lot smaller than what I'm drawing here. But for your understanding, let me draw this. As far as your neuronal arrangement in your brain is concerned, you can see that the cyton or the cell body is restricted to the gray matter, the cortex, and the axons are restricted to the inner portion or the white matter called the medulla of the brain. Okay. Do remember, cyton or the cell body gives it the gray appearance, axons or the white matter gives it the whitish appearance. This is what you see in the brain. Okay, remember, it is only for the brain. For spinal cord, there is a difference, and I will tell you when we discuss that. Now, let me tell you about these folds. Remember that any image of the brain that you see, be it a 3-dimensional image or a 2-dimensional image, you would see that it's got certain folds, upward and downward folds this way. So all of these projections and depressions have a name. The projections are called gyri, and the depressions are called sulci. Okay, the projections are called gyri, which we call the folds, and the grooves or the depressions are called sulci. Just the name should be familiar to you. That's it. All right, now coming to the next important part of the brain, which is your cerebellum. Okay, cerebrum is very important, and the next important part of the brain is the cerebellum. Now, cerebellum is a relatively smaller area of the brain located at the base. Now, this is the portion we call the cerebellum. Now, it has no convolutions, unlike no folds, unlike the cerebrum, but then it's got numerous furrows in it, numerous tiny furrows in it. What is its function? It is involved in maintaining balance and coordinates overall muscular activity. Okay, whereas your cerebrum was the main thinking part of your brain, and it helped in controlling plenty of your voluntary actions, whereas cerebellum maintains balance. Now when I'm riding a cycle, or when I'm riding a bike, or when I'm walking on the road, it is my cerebellum that plays a major importance there. If there is any issue with my cerebellum, I wouldn't be able to maintain that balance and posture. This is what the cerebellum does. And the next important part of the brain is the medulla oblongata, which is the lowest part of the brain. In fact, this is the cerebrum. Okay, this is the cerebellum, and this portion is what we call the medulla oblongata. Okay, and it's roughly triangular in shape, and it continues further as the spinal cord. Further down, it extends as the spinal cord. And what does it do? It controls plenty of internal organs activities like your cardiac rate, respiratory rate, and plenty of other actions are controlled by your medulla. Even vomiting, the sensation of nausea, vomiting, all of that is controlled by medulla oblongata. So this means injury of medulla can cause death. Very easily it can cause death. All right, now let me tell you about three major parts I have told you already: cerebrum, cerebellum, and the medulla oblongata. Now let us look at a different way of categorizing the brain. It's not any different from what we have discussed until now. Those are the three main parts of the brain. But for the sake of understanding, we divide the brain as the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. Forebrain, what is in the front; midbrain, what's in the middle; and the hindbrain, what is behind. Okay, forebrain, midbrain, and the hindbrain. All right, so let us understand them one at a time. Forebrain includes two major parts. It includes the cerebrum, the functions of which we have already seen: the seat of intelligence, memory, consciousness, willpower, voluntary action, your language, speech, everything, your senses, everything is controlled by the cerebrum, right? Not all your senses, especially the sense of smell, is controlled by the cerebrum. And the second part, which is part of your forebrain, is called diencephalon. This is the cerebrum made up of the cerebral hemispheres. And then we have the diencephalon, which is made up of two sub parts to it: the thalamus and the hypothalamus. You know what? In South Indian languages, most South Indian languages like Malayalam, Tamil, and Kannada, I'm not sure about Telugu, tala or tale means head. Okay, so remember, whenever you hear the term, the word thalamus, it is part of your brain. Thalamus is the part which regulates all senses except smell, because smell, I have already told you, is controlled chiefly by the cerebrum, by another portion of the cerebrum. And muscular and glandular activities, plenty of muscular and glandular activities, especially voluntary muscle control. Okay, some of involuntary muscle control also. Okay, what about the hypothalamus? Remember, hypo means below, so hypothalamus is a part which is situated below the thalamus. So what does it do? It helps in controlling body temperature, body pressure, your emotions like your hunger, sense of hunger, giving you senses of pleasure, all of that, sleep. Everything is controlled by the hypothalamus, and it also controls the master gland of your body, which is the pituitary gland. Okay, so hypothalamus, you will also learn it as part of the endocrine system. So for the time being, do understand that it acts as the switch on off point of the pituitary gland, which itself is the master gland. This is about the thalamus and the hypothalamus together forming a part of diencephalon. So cerebrum and diencephalon forming a part of your forebrain, CD. cerebrum, diencephalon. Okay. Now moving on to the midbrain. Midbrain is very simple because it is just one simple small stalked portion which acts as a connection between the forebrain and the hindbrain. Okay. So what exactly does it do? In addition to connecting these two parts, it also is associated with reflexes which are involved, which are concerned with the eyes and ears, your visual senses and your auditory senses. A lot of those are controlled by the midbrain. Okay, and then moving on to the last part, which is the hind brain. So the hind brain is divided into three major parts, one of which is the cerebellum. I've shown you what exactly the cerebellum is, right? This almond shaped or badam shaped portion of your brain is called the cerebellum. What does it do? It coordinates muscular activity. Mainly, it helps in maintaining your posture and balance. Helps me sit erect, helps me stand erect, helps me walk erect, helps me drive straight and ride a bike, and all of that is controlled by my cerebellum. What about pons? Pons is the next portion, which is this area. This area is called the pons. Okay, which is also part of the hind brain. What does it do? It carries impulses from one hemisphere of the cerebellum to the other hemisphere. And also, it controls various involuntary muscular movements on both the sides of the body. At the same time, pons also helps the medulla in controlling breathing rate. Okay, so pons is involved in all of these functions. And the last part, which is the medulla oblongata, controls activities of various internal organs, especially cardiac activity and your respiratory activity. Breathing rate, heart rate, all of this is controlled by medulla oblongata. So your primary respiratory center in the brain is medulla oblongata, but it is also assisted by the pons. So these two together help in controlling your breathing rate, chiefly medulla, but pons also plays a role. Now, do remember, children, you might find a little bit of overlap between functions of different parts of your brain. That is completely normal because some portions of your brain are able to do various different functions, like control a little bit of voluntary as well as involuntary functions and so on. Okay, but these are the chief functions that we have listed out here, the main functions of each of these parts. Remember, once again, the hind brain is made up of the cerebellum. Where is it? Yes, the cerebellum, pons, and medulla oblongata, CPM, are part of the hind brain. Okay, and midbrain we have seen, very, very simple, forebrain, cerebrum, and diencephalon. And you must very well know the difference between cerebrum and cerebellum also. Okay, children, let's take a very quick break before we continue with the quiz and the central nervous system's remaining portions. We've covered the major part of it, but let's take a quick break and let me tell you about the problems which most children face today in online education. You may have plenty of unanswered doubts. You may not have proper notes, tests and assignments. The type in which tests happen, assignments are given, all of this has totally changed this year, right? Thanks to the COVID pandemic. Competitive exam preparation may be more of a problem. Choice of schedule, choice of language, everything seems to be like very, very difficult to tackle. But not to worry, because as long as you are with us, Vedantu will be there as a solid support, solving all these problems, and in addition giving you plenty of bonuses like unlimited live classes, plenty of micro courses and crash courses, performance reports, and personalized attention, what not. So all you have to do is, children, just visit the link in the description box below and check out the pinned comment in the comment section below also. And once you click on the link in the description box, remember to use the coupon code AMBPRO to avail the best benefits that we have out there in terms of the monetary aspects, the discounts that you will be able to avail. But let me quickly rush you through it. Once you click on that link, you will be led to a window wherein you will have to choose your grade. So I'm assuming it's going to be grade 10 for majority of you. It can be grade 9 also. And choose your board. Okay, so say for instance, it's ICSE 2021. and check out all the details. I've mentioned some of the major details. You can check out all the other details also about the course which we call Vedantu Pro. And once you have read through this thoroughly, click on the button that says Get Subscription. But what is the benefit of this and how much would it cost you? So a 1 month of subscription would mean that for 30 days, you get unlimited access to all of these features that I have told you: live interactive classes, test series and analysis, assignments and notes, and plenty of others. And the best aspect is that equal importance is given to all your major subjects. It's not just focused on exclusively math or exclusively science or exclusively, one or two of your overall subjects. The key to success in your board exams is to give equal focus to all your subjects, and we take care of that. Okay, so normally it's priced at rupees 2,699, as you can see here, but application of the code AMBPRO would reduce this to 2,159.2. Okay, so this is about a 1 month of subscription. And if you want to be tension free for a slightly longer period of time, which is for 3 months, roughly around 90 days or so, it means for 90 days you will have unlimited access to all of these, which is normally priced at 6,999. But application of the code AMBPRO fetches you a discount and reduces it to 5,599.2. And what about the 6 months? We have this option also. If you want to be tension free for the rest of this academic year, go in for the 6-month subscription, wherein it's normally priced at rupees 11,499. But again, application of the same code AMBPRO reduces it to 9,199.2. So 9,000 may seem like a huge amount, like when I say 9,000, 11,000. But do remember, this is for all your major subjects together: physics, chemistry, bio, math, English, SST, everything covered. Okay, at that too for 6 months, unlimited classes. And remember, micro courses will be very, very useful to your children. This means that whichever chapters or whichever topics you specifically need extra help with, you can go ahead and opt for additional courses on that. Those are what we call micro courses, topic wise or chapter level courses available out there for your benefit. So certainly do make use of it, children, because this is a pure balance between quality content and at the same time being budget friendly. Okay, children, so I have told you whatever I had to do. Now it's completely your call and your responsibility. If you want to make the best use of it, certainly not to waste any more time, because we are still just a few months away from your board exams. All right, so now let's move on to the next part of your central nervous system, which is your spinal cord. So yes, remember I told you forebrain, midbrain and hind brain. And from the hind brain, the medulla continues further as the spinal cord. So the spinal cord is a part of your body which is protected by the bony structure called the vertebral column. As I've told you earlier, this is also protected by a set of meninges, which we call spinal meninges. And they are also made of an outer dura mater, a middle arachnoid matter, and an inner pia mater. And in between arachnoid and pia mater, in the subarachnoid space, in this space, you would find the cerebrospinal fluid moving around, which basically acts in terms of protection from mechanical shocks and transport of respiratory gases and whatever else is required, nutrients and everything else that's required. Okay, now coming to the gray and white matter. Children, pay careful attention, because this is very, very important from the point of view of your exam. For the brain, I have told you, when you take one section of your brain, you would see there is outer gray matter, inner white matter. For the spinal cord, it's just the opposite: inner gray matter and the outer white matter. Why is it so? You know what? Plenty of past years ICSE exams have asked this particular question in section B as a 5 marker. For example, one image will be given to you, either this image or the one of the cross section of the brain, and you will be asked to identify which part of the body this is. And you will be asked why, what is the reason behind this arrangement? Why is it that it's got inner gray color and outer white color? What would be your answer for that? Because in this case, inner cell body, right, and outer axons. Whereas in the brain's case, it was outer cytons and inner axons. Wherever cytons or cell bodies are there, the grayish appearance would be given. Gray matter is dominated by cell body, and the white matter is dominated by axons. All right. So this is the major function of the gray matter and white matter. Remember, it is purely with respect to arrangement of the neurons that we give these names. And this is a comparison for you to be able to easily at one glance be able to differentiate between them. This is the transverse section of the spinal cord, and this is a section of the brain. You can see inner gray matter in the spinal cord and outer white matter, whereas in the brain it is outer gray matter and inner white matter. Okay, don't get mixed up. Extremely important. Learn this concept and your chances of scoring that 5 full marks is actually multiplied to a great extent, because it's very frequently asked. Okay, now coming to the functions of the spinal cord. I told you it runs across your, within your entire length of the vertebral column, which means until the middle of your body, like roughly around your, until your hip region, it runs down. The major functions are that it controls reflexes below the neck. Say, for instance, I'm touching something very hot. Okay, so immediately I pull back my hand. It is such an emergency situation that there is no time for the information to be passed on to my brain and then come back for a response. In such a situation, when my body or when your body is in a state of emergency, it is the spinal cord that takes a decision. It's like, okay, although I am the PA to the brain, in this situation, because it's an emergency, I will take the decision, because there's not enough time for it to travel till the brain and then go back. Okay, so in order to save that time, spinal cords, acts in times of such reflexes. This is why we say reflexes below the neck region are controlled by the spinal cord. Then, secondly, it conducts sensory impulses from the skin and muscles to the brain, acts as a sort of connection between your skin and muscles and the brain. Okay. Then, thirdly, it conducts motor responses from the brain to the muscles of your trunk and limbs. Okay, these are the chief functions of the spinal cord. As we discuss more about reflex actions, you will understand more about it, why it plays a major role and things like that. But just understand, children, the brain and the spinal cord together form a part of the central nervous system. And that brings us to the end of the concept discussion for today's session. Let us see how many of you are able to answer the upcoming questions correctly. So here comes your first question for the day. The protective bony box in which the brain is located is called the dash. Cranium, vertebral column, pericardium, or the peritoneum. The bony box. And your time is up. The answer is cranium, of course, the bony box. All right, the next one. Dash surrounds the brain, is liquid in nature, and acts as shock absorber. Is it the cranium, pia mater, cerebrospinal fluid, or the blood? And your time is up. The answer is cerebrospinal fluid, of course, acts as a shock absorber and acts as a medium for transport of respiratory gases and nutrients. Okay, now, the main thinking part of the human brain is dash. Cerebrum, cerebellum, medulla oblongata, pons. The main thinking part, the seat of intelligence, as we call it. And your time is up. The answer is cerebrum. The main thinking part of the human brain is cerebrum. And the next part, the next question. The gray matter is present as an inner layer in case of dash. Okay, important to know. Brain, spinal cord, both brain and spinal cord, or none of these. Gray matter is present as an inner layer in which of these? Remember, outer white matter and inner gray matter. Where do you find this arrangement? Your time is up. The answer is spinal cord, whereas in the case of brain, it is outer gray matter and inner white matter. And very, very well done. I really loved this image, which is why I chose to put it here. Because children, it's very important to take care of your brain. What would you do to take care of your brain? I would love to hear that also from you. What are the simple tips and tricks that you know for sure and you have been following like diligently, if at all you do follow, please put it in the comment section below, like you sleep for a very long time, or you eat brain healthy foods, or something like that, you meditate, yoga, anything that you think is interesting, because I love talking about those things and we can discuss that in upcoming sessions also. All right, children. So before I say goodbye to you, let me remind you that you now know about the central nervous system, which is composed of the brain and spinal cord. Remember, brain stem also, which is considered to be a part of the brain, but we mentioned it separately in the first flow chart. So I'm just reminding you that's also there. So here is your homework question for the day. Which is the largest part of the human brain? Okay, let us see who comes up with the first answer, and I will discuss that in the upcoming session. And do remember, children, for your own benefit, I'm repeating this. Remember to visit the link given in the description box below and the pinned comment in the comment section below, and use the coupon code AMBPRO to avail the best discounts out there for Vedantu Pro subscription. Children, if you have found this session useful, please do remember to click on the like button right now, because I'm sure this is a topic that is considered to be a little tricky by many children, but it's not at all tricky. You just need to probably watch it 3-4 times, and I'm sure this will be very, very easy for you to remember. Okay, so do remember to share it also with all your friends who you think will benefit from this. Unfortunately, from CBSE, this chapter has been deleted for this academic year. So ICSE children and CBSE NEET level children will certainly benefit from this as far as this academic year is concerned. And also, do remember to subscribe to the channel Vedantu 9th and 10th English, because we are going to be coming up with more and more of these. And also, I repeat, whatever else you would like to give us as a suggestion for the kind of videos that you would want in this on this channel, be it a general motivational video or anything that you think can benefit you, please feel free to post it in the comment section below. And whatever we think that a good majority of you require, we will certainly come up with a video on that. Okay, and until we meet again, stay home, stay safe, and this is Ambika signing off. Bye bye.